I'm here.
You're just gearing up. So,
Right.
Hi.
Right. Hey. Okay. Well, hey everybody. Hello and thanks and welcome to the show. It's those are rookie numbers, and so we're going to be doing a panel on the art of character progression, stats, and world building. We're going to delve into the game-like mechanics and drive our stories and talk about everything from leveling up to skill trees. And we've got a great panel for this. I was super excited because like nobody's exactly like each other. So it gives us this kind of wide point of view. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have each person introduce themselves, and just for the fun of it, pick one of your books or somebody else's books if you want. But you've just noticed there's a bug in the system. And the highest stat of your character has been swapped with the lowest stat. And just briefly, like, how would that affect the book? Now we're going to roll for initiative to see who gets to go first. I've got a 1, so Stuart, you're up.
All right.
And also tell us about yourself a little bit as well, right? So proper intro.
I'm Stuart Gross. I do villains as protagonists, so bad people doing bad things for fun and profit, and they win. I have 190 titles on Amazon right now.
Wow.
Mostly my serial novellas in different series. I'm best known for Lewd Dungeon, where a guy gets turned into a dungeon and has slime monsters with tentacles called Captain Hentai. So, actually, I would for the question, pick the bug. I would swap Kuranoth, my dungeon who becomes a god. Swap his charisma, which is his highest stat, with his wisdom, which is his lowest.
Oh, okay.
And that wouldn't change too much just because of how the dungeon stats are, but it would make him have a few more less crazy decisions at times.
Okay. So it actually might mellow out the story a little bit.
Yeah.
We don't want that. Definitely don't want that. Okay. Thanks for that. I'm rolling initiative again, and now we've got a 3. So Jay, you're up.
Hey guys, I'm Jay Boyce. I write Slice of Life, Rise of the Mystic Mage, and Touch of Power. And I was actually just pulling up my sheets to look at what my highest and lowest were, because I'm kind of one of those people who actually tends to raise them equally, fairly across the board.
Okay.
So I was looking at it, and in Siphon, luck is her lowest. But her highest is only 10 points higher. So it would switch luck with magic. So
magic drops, luck goes up.
Magic would drop, luck would go up. And I don't actually think it would affect that.
We're not
that
dealing
much.
with min-maxers here, huh?
It's not really. I was trying to look at my Elysium or I guess Mystic Mage to see how much that would change, and it would be strength would go way up,
okay,
and magic would go, or intelligence would go way down. So that one would actually make a difference. It would make life hard.
Kill off our character, right?
Yeah, because
she
just. Her character would be hamstringed, but she could probably make it
figure it out. Right on.
She doesn't like being up close and personal though. So.
Yeah, got to run away now. Okay, yeah. Dao, you're up next. What would you do? Well, first, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your books, and then jump into a character if you would.
Sure. My name's Tao Wong. I write the System Apocalypse, Climbing the Ranks, Magic Kingdom, 1000 Li, and a whole bunch of other series. Nowhere near as much as Stuart, though.
Wow.
And I think the easiest one to talk about, because some of the other systems are just kind of weird, would be System Apocalypse. And if we're swapping out John's highest and lowest, his highest stat is intelligence, which is very closely followed by willpower. His lowest is charisma, which makes a lot of sense. Huh?
So it turns into a harem book.
Yeah, I mean, he has a lot of female companions. It would become a sort of harem book.
Are you gonna write that?
Yeah, it'd be a weird story.
Okay, you'd have to have a different author write that then, huh?
wouldn't be Taz.
It wouldn't be Tao. No, definitely not. Okay,
I can
Matt.
write a harem.
Oh, can you? Is that a challenge? When do we expect the book?
Next week.
Yeah, if you could do 191, I suppose you could do it next week. Okay, thanks, Tao. Matt, you're up last.
I would totally read the Tal Harem book. I can't wait.
It would be hilarious. I'm not gonna lie.
Also, anybody notice how like awesome like Robert's voice and hair combo is? He's like the perfect interviewer. He's like somebody you would see on like NBC on LA in the LA market interviewing us.
Matt,
Like,
you are
those-
invited to anything I'm on. Thank you. From now on,
No,
no
I'm not
matter
gonna
what
lie,
Brian says about you, he's lying.
You do remind me of like Robert J.
I don't know. Wait, that could go. Never mind. Thank you. Now answer the damn question. You
So
write a
my
book,
name is
I
Matt. My name is Matt Dinneman. I write lots of books. Probably most known for this book called Kaiju Battlefield Surgeon. Or maybe a book called Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Never heard of it.
I mean, yeah. If I go
No
with the
one
the most obvious answer to the question, like Princess Donut, she has
Oh, yeah.
a constitution that's actually stuck on 2, and then her charisma is like off the charts. And if you swap those, where she was like really stout but really low charisma, that would be a completely different story. It wouldn't be even close because
There'd be a mangy cat that you couldn't kill.
yeah. So she would. Her attitude wouldn't change, but the people's reactions to her attitude
Would
would
so
change because of her high charisma. She bosses everyone around, and then the NPCs usually do what she says. And then so she would have to start using her claws more than her ranged attacks, I would think.
But like that
It'd be
kind of
completely
works
different
almost,
story.
right? She would be
Yeah.
like unapologetically, no, I am beautiful, therefore you must. And people are like, are we actually supposed to do this? Kill her. And it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you for that. The next question is and this is a little bit more generic question, right? I mean, obviously we're in this panel. So how do you balance power progression in your stories to ensure that the character grows without becoming overwhelmingly powerful too quickly? Because this is, I think, for me as a newer writer, something that people do bump up against. And I'll open that up to anybody that actually does want to jump right on in on it.
I'll go.
Stuart?
I do the exact opposite of that. I make them overwhelmingly powerful at the beginning, and then they get more powerful as it goes on. Because I do straight power fantasy, so none of this weak to strong or, gotta build, they get bumped around by a whole bunch of things and then get stronger. Usually I have some reason why my main character is an overwhelming powerhouse. Like, oh, they are the dungeon, and so they are God within their domain. Or, oh, they took their stats from an old game and sacrificed that character to become even stronger in the next game, or something like that. But I go with them starting as incredibly overpowered, and then they just get further. And so the stories, because I do serial novellas instead of actual novels, it lends itself more to a monster of the week kind of format. So it's, how is he going to curb stomp these people today? And so it's a lot of fun doing that.
Right on. And actually, if you don't mind, Tao, I actually, when I first started getting into Lit RPG, one of your series is like, I started reading it. And I was always like a little bit like, okay, what's going to happen next? And he needs to power up and he needs to get stronger, especially in this apocalyptic system or in a progression system. Like, how about you? How do you approach that?
Knowing what the top end is, right? If you know what your top end of the power scale is, especially if you've got a set series of number of books, or you know where your end arc is, you can then backwards plot how powerful he has to be to deal with those guys right at the end. And so then you can kind of progress it at a somewhat steady rate, depending on your stories. There will be times where you kind of just curve along and then you jump up a little bit more. The other thing you can also play around with is not just the character sheet, but also equipment, right? Giving him different types of equipment. And Matt does a lot of that with DCC. Can give you power progression without, making this character itself super powerful, and sometimes you can take it away, and
Right.
a little bit.
But that sounds then like you've actually got the end in mind when you start writing, though, right? So that kind of sets up a little bit of this pantser versus planner. So it sounds like you're planning for the end. Would that be
I'm
true?
a total pantser. I do not know what is going to happen before it is on the page.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I
with
don't
that in,
know my
I'm
end.
rolling dice while I'm writing to determine what happens.
it's all random. I think you're not alone in that. So Tao, you're a planner. You kind of know what's going on. Going down to Matt, like, how about you, Matt? I know you do a lot of rewrites, but like, what's your approach?
I do. I am. I'm like Stuart, where I'm a complete pantser. People never believe me when I say this, but I make it all up as I go along.
Hmm.
But to answer the question, I think it's really, really important. There's different ways to do it. Again, Stuart does the power fantasy where the guy's strong, and there's people that love that sort of story, and then there's people that like the stories where they like the underdog kind of getting weak to strong, and then they like it when he ends as the strongest person in the room, and then he's just kicking everyone's ass. And there's other, there's 100 different ways to to cook this egg. I kind of like making sure that even though my character is getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, that they're never the strongest person. When you can pretty much get away with anything in power progression, and you can deal with power creep when you make it very, very clear right away that there are other people in this world who are getting just as strong, just as fast, or stronger. And I always kind of make a point of having another character in this story that's actually stronger than Carl and Donut. And
that sets up that
it's a
tension
challenge
as well, right? But it also
Yes,
sets up
exactly.
the tension to keep it interesting no matter what.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I agree. And then like Tao says, I have lots of equipment drops, and so a lot of their power is tied to a specific item, and sometimes they lose it, or sometimes the item itself kind of has a counter to it where it has a negative effect. And it's really fun to play with all those little different things and ways to ratchet tension, and to be able to pull it away when you need it to be pulled away, and then add the tension in other moments.
Okay, so a crux, or a crutch rather, is maybe equipment.
Yes.
So just throw some in there. Jay, how about you?
So I think I've been on panels like this too much with Tao, and so my answer is very similar.
It's like that guy makes sense.
But like Stuart and Matt, I'm almost a complete pantser. But I do like building my system and knowing the end from the beginning. So despite knowing that I am just going to make shit up and I will roll for things as they come, I do have my bones of my system built so that I am within those bounds, and I do know the end of the power cap from the beginning. And that's kind of where I'm at. Like when I write a book, there's an analogy I really like, which is like the Misty Valley. And so you start on one end, and you're on a mountain, and you can see into the valley, and you can see the mountain on the other side, and you can like see a few trees in the valley that are sticking up out of the mist. And so when I start, I go down and I go into the mist, and I head for that one tree that I know that I want to use. And then once I get to that tree, I kind of go for the next tree that I can find.
Right.
And so like that's how I write, is that I have a few like points that I know I would like to hit, but other than that, I'm still exploring the path.
And I think that's a kind of a good segue, because this is my first year in writing, and kind of doing it the pantser way. I found myself writing into problems, and I'm thinking, oh crap, I don't want to be like Matt, because like rewrite the entire chapter. I'm just not okay with that. So then what happens if a character you start changing a stat or something, they start boosting way up, and now suddenly the story starts to change. So Stuart, I'm going to go right to you, since you're a pantser and you can probably relate to this, though you are OP. But have you ever actually kind of seen a stat or gone a direction that did change the arc of the story a bit?
I haven't, except for one time where I was significantly in my Winterborn series. I started off the character because I was using Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 rules.
Okay.
And I realized a few chapters in that I hadn't given the main character any ranks in the concentration skill, which is what they need to be able to use spells defensively, or you get attacked with you're trying to use spells in melee. So that was something I had to, add ranks in as they, leveled up. But that's the only time because I was stealing a system.
Okay, that makes sense. Tao, how about yourself? You're more of a planner, so it feels like it might be a bit different story.
I'm sort of actually closer to Jay, where I have a beginning and an end, and everything else I write in between. But I think I don't know, because I generally, as I'm writing along, I don't have as much. I think the biggest one that I had to do a rewrite on was when I got the math wrong. That's the law of Magic Kingdom at War. Which is I'm writing. It's a super crunchy system because it's Civ, Forex World. All the gold is tracked. I have it spreadsheets, and I got the spreadsheet wrong, and I only found out about, I think it was 15 days later, and then I looked back and it went, oh crap! So I had to rewrite everything because I couldn't buy certain units at a certain time. I couldn't build buildings at a certain time. Everything had to be redone, which was a pain in the ass.
Yeah,
I'm surprised you didn't just change the math to fix the things they bought.
I couldn't because it was already there it was shown already, and it was significant enough that it couldn't. It was easier just to make some rewrites on the few chapters than to go and do a big, math thing.
Makes sense.
Or
Yeah,
right in where they find a bunch of gold.
Not possible.
It's crazy how I did an experiment. I was using I think it was Grok or something, and I asked it to figure out a hypothetical stat progression equation for like one of your characters, and it was like literally this crazy calculus algorithm that was like this big, and I was like, oh my god, that guy's a madman.
It's not that hard.
But it's not right. So you say, but I think Matt was
Once you set up a spreadsheet, everything does itself.
You guys speak of these magical spreadsheets and somehow they saved the world. But like Matt confessed that he needed a team almost, to create like a database with hundreds of tabs, to keep track of this. So like, what is a new aspiring author to do, to
make shit up as you go along? And, it's like the whose line is it anyway? The points don't matter.
And the points don't matter, right? Matt, do you agree, or like, what's your take? What's your approach here? Like, what are you going to say to somebody?
Well, my approach is to again make it all up as I go along, but keep very careful track of everything that's behind you. And when you do that, it's the problem like Tao had is it's really really easy to run into. Luckily, if you're a writer that has a certain number of readers, you have people like Jay reading your books, and then we'll send you like spreadsheets in the email about how you did X wrong,
right,
and X wrong, and then either you block her or you thank her, and then you can fix it.
Or both.
I usually
people on Patreon that pay you to proofread.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Brian now.
But I think I don't like having such a rigid system like Tao does. They're on a television show on Dungeon Crawler Carl, and it's the rule of cool is part of the plot. So
right,
if there's something that can be fudged to make more sense, then we can do that. And right now in book 7 and beyond, what's happening is, and this isn't really a spoiler, but the system is actually becoming more rigid and less rigid at the same time. It's saying we are going to follow these rules to a T, but it's also like, doing other things that are crazier. And this is resulting in kind of back to the original question that we're supposed to be answering is like certain characters are getting their stats like completely both nerfed and like opt out. And at the end of book 7, we have one character who has insane stats, and we have other characters who are kind of falling by the wayside, and who that is might be surprising to some of the readers. So it's fun to play with, but I don't like locking myself into a system where my mistakes have like invalidated the entire book. And there's lots of lit RPG authors who've run into that problem, and it's because nerds read our work, number nerds. I mean, that's kind of the point for a lot of people. And one mistake as you know, in an algorithm, you put the period in the wrong place,
Oh man.
and then your ship is crashing
done.
into Mars instead of landing on the moon. You know, it's
A
yeah.
virus.
Yeah, Magic Kingdom is the crunchiest I've ever gone, and I will never go back to this
Right.
crunchy.
Right.
Having a little bit of leeway in between of, or how the effects come out makes your life so much easier.
But Stuart's saying that we can solve this by spreadsheets, Stuart, don't you think?
The crunchy system, books I've had with crunchy systems are ones where I stole them directly from tabletop RPGs.
Okay.
So, I've used Mutants and Masterminds, I've used Hero System, and I've used Dungeons and Dragons. I'm writing one using Shadowrun right now.
Okay.
So those are all crunchy systems, but all the stuff is already laid out and has been play tested, and so I don't have to
it works.
making up the system. I just, here's what points I have fun.
It makes total sense. Jay, how about you? Anything to add to that?
So I had a nickname once upon a time that was the spreadsheet queen.
I've heard this.
Because
I've heard this.
I do. I send my friends spreadsheets with things highlighted in red.
Wait. You don't send them spreadsheets with, the fixes. You just point out the mistakes, or do you actually solve the problem for them as well?
Well, if you tell them the answer,
done
they
both.
won't learn anything.
I've done both. Usually in the spreadsheets, though, I'll highlight what it is and what it's supposed to be.
Okay. I just got 50 people private messaging me. They want to know who's the worst offender, and is it Matt, and did you have to slap him? Those messages are coming across. It's a private channel. I would tell you who it was, but
actually, I don't.
no, you can tell us. We won't tell anybody.
I have
else.
never written a wrong number ever once in my life.
No,
He wrote a lot of
It's a total secret.
I don't want to
No
say
one will
this
know.
because it was the first person I ever sent a spreadsheet to, and they kind of ignored me.
Oh, now you have to tell us.
No, she doesn't.
No.
Oh, she doesn't? Okay. So
No
it was
adding
Tao. It was
drama.
Tao. Okay, it was Tao. Got it. No worries.
No, it was not.
That's totally fine.
But
She's never sent me a spreadsheet. I
of course
asked
not.
her to.
he actually did ask me
Oh,
to
really?
do climbing the ranks, and
No, it wasn't. It was Magic Kingdom.
Oh, it was Magic Kingdom. He asked me to, when he found out he messed up, he asked me to go through and try and fix it.
If you can fix Matt, you can fix anybody.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I'm not gonna say it.
That's okay.
because
I won't put you in an awkward position. I'll just
Yeah.
tell those 50 people it's a mystery.
However, back to the original question, I do actually have an answer to that.
Oh,
Because there was, I roll for all of my loot. And so I have a list of things that they could get and possibilities. And so there was a whole bunch of like spells and stuff that I had no idea how, like she just had these spells and I'm like, I don't know when that's going to come in handy. Like she just got these
Throw a
spells
grenade
and
in
she's
it.
like, cool, I have these spells.
right.
But then there was this treasure trove that was like in a cave on a cliffside. And like it was a crow cave. So like
John Doe.
there's only like a 1 foot diameter tunnel into this cave, and she should have had no way to go in. No way to get it. I thought this was going to be something she was going to come back to way later when she had a lot more spells.
Mhm.
And it turned out she had like the exact right amount of abilities to just get in and get a whole
in,
bunch
yeah.
more loot. I was
And-
like,
and the bummer here, Jay, is it, people are going to mistake it for plot armor. And you're like, no, I'm literally rolling dice for this.
yeah, no, it literally, I did not think this, like, I was like, wait, how did this all work out like so perfectly? Like every single thing that she needed was just,
It was right there. It's like rolling a natural 20 when you need it.
it was
Improbable, but
legitimately rolling a nat
right
20 on this. And like, oh my God, like, how did this all work
come together. Okay.
perfectly? And like, it ended up being a really cool moment where she's like, oh, hey, I got to use like all of these spells that don't normally come in handy. And suddenly they're useful for
Yeah,
For making things happen.
some of my readers are like, how did you, foreshadowing, because you link back to this stuff like 8-10 books ago. It's like, yeah,
Wow,
no,
you're so smart.
that was me just, looking back and saying, oh, I can make something out of that. And then, and it looks like I foreshadowed because
Trickery.
I just made stuff up as I went.
Okay, so the next question is a slightly more serious question, which I just kind of want you to think about in a sense. Like, my wife is Korean. And so, like, when we talk about Lit RPG, when we talk about like books that she's reading, and she's been reading actually a few different books, it's a question of culture. How do you see different cultures or races? I'll give you that as an out as well, like emphasizing different stats and skills. And do you think that's an interesting thing to portray within your series? Now, you might not do it, which is fine. But like, what do you think? Hold on, let me roll for initiative here, and it's a 3, 1, 2, 3. Jay, back over to you.
So in Mystic Mage, I have 3 different races, and they do have slightly different emphasis on the racial stats and what they get in elements.
Okay.
And that's actually one of I've linked the elements to certain races. Not that the other races can't get them, but just they have natural affinities for
Makes
those.
Sense.
And so that's kind of how I dealt with it. I enjoy it. It's just an extra thing to make more people different.
Yeah, and we need that, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Matt, you're up next. You look like you have an answer right at the tip of your tongue.
I don't, but I'm going to make it up as I go along. Like I do.
You're an author and you're a pantser.
I enjoy reading about like different cultures clashing, and it's really interesting. Tao has a book called Climbing the Ranks, which is it's about Malaysian culture basically in a tower environment, and it's a lot of people's attitudes is so different than the Americans when they do it, or even when I read a book that's written by like an Australian or
the Russians or
Brit,
the Chinese,
or especially the Russians and the Chinese. You see so many different approaches to human interaction, and that's something that's, as a reader, more so than a writer, that's something that I just love. I go out of my way to find books where I can, not just involving stats, just involving how culture, when it encounters something new, whether it's a monster or an invading force, how they deal with it. Like, is the overwhelming people, are they suspicious? Are they do they work together, or does it all every man for himself? And I mean, and it's also important for me to, like, not everybody in this culture does the exact same thing and it becomes like a stereotype.
Right.
Like, and that's a big thing that we fall into with fantasy books, where all the dwarves are short, drunk Scottish people that are angry all the time, and then all the elves are tall, snooty,
right, with blue
and
hair.
And when you go across, and the fact that we're all human and we're all so different and varied, I mean, I suspect all other races in fantasy worlds would be like that as well. So
I think that's an interesting thing, Matt, because like for me, like when I was a kid, reading fantasy, my whole goal was to escape, explore, and like learn, but not really learn. And so the fun thing was always seeing these other cultures and how they do things. So for me, like the beauty is in the difference, and so it's like, oh, I really want to see. And like like having traveled a little bit, like in America, like, okay, I'm going to become good at killing things is maybe a little bit of the trope, versus maybe a different culture might be like, hey, we're going to be really good at amping each other up. Right. It's like, I think in Brian's Quest Academy, like he really pushes like support classes, which I think is in some ways maybe a different approach than others, where we just want monster killers or something. I don't know. Tao or Stuart, do you guys have
shotguns?
Can I add one point to that?
Yeah, please.
Is that, like, in my Touch of Power series, I have a couple different embassies from, or ambassadors from different cultures who come, and like I've got one culture who is way more like when Jade is coming from the sky, whereas nobody else really doesn't. And one of her observations is, oh, hey, these people actually notice when I'm coming from the sky. That means they're alert to
And aware.
aerial dangers. So like these people don't really have aerial predators that they really have to watch out for, whereas that culture does.
Okay.
And so their fighting systems have developed
Oh, is it different? Yeah, that makes sense. And so that would manifest itself. That's pretty cool. Stuart, Tao, do you guys have something to add?
I don't, like I do the, D&D style. Hey, this race has certain advantages, but not major ones. Let's like a small boost to, charisma, for instance, for the succubus.
Right.
Or the goblin has better agility, dexterity. But so most of my stuff is, you get more out of your class and your profession than you do out of your race.
Okay. So it's a little bit more individualistic versus cultural or something like that. Okay. Tao, I'm looking to you to save us here. Like, do you have any comment?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting reading other groups' stuff. I mean, Japan and Korea are much further ahead than us in terms of what type of lit RPG they've written. Russia seems to be. I haven't read a lot of Russian lit RPG recently, I have to say, so I can't really comment on it. But I know, the Japanese lit RPG stuff is, I see a lot of luck-based ones where the characters get a lot of luck. And I think that's a lot more,
as well.
because it's a wish fulfillment thing too. There is a lot of slice of life, luck-based, characters. And I think we are seeing a shift towards that in our own writing. So I think, I don't know if it's a cultural thing. I think it's just, as people progress, and more types of books are out available, people will want to niche down.
Right. Well, and it does seem like we've seen such a divergence from original lit RPG, 5 years ago or 6 years ago, 8 years ago. And now it's becoming all of these other things that are quite interesting, less about just big stats, min-max, going out and killing things, which is pretty cool. But I do think, Stuart kind of calls it out as like, hey, we're very much about a specific class. And so we don't see cultures, being represented where they might, see a different characteristic getting, bigger and bigger. So anyways, moving on. What about design skill tree? So I was writing a book and I'm like, okay, this is going to be great. A class gets these skills, it levels up, and holy crap. Like I was literally up to my eyebrows and like, this is really, really hard. So any like thoughts on how you go about designing class, like the Skyrim skill tree or something like that? Any advice, thoughts, experience?
Yeah. Discounting the ones where I steal a system, obviously, because somebody else already made all the skills and stuff for that. I usually just go with the KISS principle. Okay, here's the blade skill. You now are better at using blades. Here's the gun skill. You're now better at using guns. And I just leave it like that and don't attach numbers to them usually so that I can hand wave stuff as I need to. And so, like, in most of my systems, okay, you leveled up, you get 2 skill points. You probably got, between your race, class, profession, and other, you probably have like 8 skills that you got this, access to that you need to pick 2 of.
Okay.
And so that gives, like, there's always hey, here's a whole table of available skills that you still have, if you can get skill points for them, but you're never going to get them all.
And are you making those skills, those skills specifically up on the spot? Or
Yes.
are you, okay. So you're like, okay, just make it up what might make sense at the time.
Oh yeah. Just completely make everything up and
completely pants it along. All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to Tao. Like, what do you do a little bit more planning than that, or do you make it up as it hits?
Sort of. I work based off principles, right? I know what the basic principles of the system that I am building is, the bedrock foundation ideas of what the system will do, right? What the goal of the system is, or the goals of a class is, right? What is a class? What does it do? What are the constraints when you're building a class? Once I have those principal ideas, I don't then have to build every single class out there. I just know the constraints that, the box that they have to fit into. So then when I hit, a place where I have to build a class, that's when I start building it out. and I know, okay, well, this is, the box that it has to fit into. Here's how I, squeeze everything in. And if it doesn't squeeze in, then I just lop off the bits that need to be shorn off. That's why, System Apocalypse skill trees are based off of certain things.
Right.
Magic Kingdom, I have a very specific build out. I know where each of those tiers that, and the buildings that they are built into, what they're meant to do. I don't have to write every building out.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, I was talking to Ben Karai, who did Farmer series, and I think he said something that was quite interesting. He was looking at how video games, especially phone games, are just kicking you up with dopamine hits. But there was an element of knowing what comes next. In other words, I know once I level up, and this is one of the things we love about D&D, right? It's like, oh man, I can't wait to become level 5 so I can unlock a level 3 spell or something like that. So it's this anticipation and building towards, so for me, that's like where it got complicated. Like I got to build all this out. Now, Stuart, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Pull in a system, right? Matt, you're making it up, with each level or whatever. How do you approach it?
Well, I kind of do just what you said that Ben does is I do make it up as I go along, but if he comes to a point where he becomes a fighter, for example, and I think it would be cool to have some sort of anticipation for the reader, then I'll show the tree what, like, it could choose this or this, or I just kind of throw it out at them at the time where they have to choose. You have to be really careful about that as a writer when you do that, because the bigger their skill trees are, the more people are going to read it and then get upset with them taking the wrong choice, for example.
Right.
And then you get to deal with like, oh, he
should have done this.
He didn't turn himself into a tentacle monster, which would have made him 10 times more powerful,
right.
That sort of stuff. But if you can hint at certain things that are going to be cool, and when I reach level 5, I am going to be able to cast this spell that will let me, beat the snot monster or whatever.
Yep.
And then
massive tissue.
Have them working towards that, and that's the spell he needs to get. That's the cool part about Lit RPG. That's what makes this whole style of books we're doing unique, and that's cool. It's just another tool in our writer tool chest that we can use to ratchet tension or to entertain the readers. And so if your skill trees are working against you, then you're doing it wrong, basically.
Damn it. Thanks a lot, buddy. You were so nice in the beginning, and now, well, you're just doing it wrong. That's okay. So Jay, how about you? Like what's your approach?
Okay, so for Mystic Mage, I do have a very extensive amount of things I spreadsheeted
just
out for this.
boil it right on down to something. Just boom.
So
Caitlin has spreadsheets. I'm shocked.
Yeah, I know it is.
No, okay, so here's the thing. Again, I have the skeleton of the system. And whenever I need something, I build out the muscles and the skin and as I need it. So I have the 8 classes. And then I have the 7 elements on top of it. And for each class, I have a list of, I went through and built out some basic stuff. So I knew what most of the classes, like what were the spells that they can go to the academy and learn at level 1 versus level 10.
So they know this going in.
So I knew some of that going in.
Okay.
But here's the thing, is that it's highly customizable in that whenever I get a spell, there are 7 elements she can attune it to. And so I have to choose when I get a shield spell and then I attune it to water, it's different than a shield spell that's attuned to earth or fire.
Mm-hmm.
And so they do different things or have different effects. Like some things are more defensive, some are more offensive. And so like the same spell, when you get it from if you take the exact same spell and then put it in a different element, it does different things.
So what I'm hearing you say is you're designing
Ice bolt versus a wind bolt.
Yeah, so you're designing for flexibility.
I do. I design for flexibility, but then I also have the attribute points that you can, like, once you get to level 10, you get a split choice. So, like, her magic missile basically gets a split choice at level 10 that says, okay, do you want to hit more people or do you want to hit harder?
I've got about 15 people on private chat asking me if you're going to share spreadsheets to the group.
No.
We are
Nobody
gonna
gets to
disappoint
see my
15
behind the scenes.
Now it's 50. Just now 50 new private messages came in asking if you're going to share.
No,
It
I
wasn't
wish.
John Doe.
No, I don't let people see the behind the scenes stuff because at least most of the time, because if I need to fudge, I don't want them to be able to deny me.
So Tao, back over to you. Foreshadowing, of level ups and potential. How do you work with that to kind of keep that excitement, of like, oh yeah, once he gets there? What's your approach?
That's a good question. I don't really think about it, really. I mean, I know, I guess I don't actually think about it in terms of my character's level ups.
Okay. Well, it could be stats going up. It could be skills. It could be powers.
Yeah, I mean, it's people increasing power, and we know that they're always going to be going up. I guess mostly it's about the plot within the books itself, and then fitting the level ups within that plot to go and why do they need, because we're all progression fantasy to some extent, why do they need that specific power up to go and overcome this specific plot aspect of it, is where I look at it rather than the other way around, if that happens.
Yep. Okay. Stuart, how about yourself?
So how level ups in my systems usually work is at each level you get a certain number of set ability points based on your race, class, and profession. And then you get a certain number of free ability points that you can put wherever you want, and a couple of skill points that you can put wherever, choose whatever you want. And so that's the same every level. At level 51, 101, and so on, you go up in tier, which means you get a, if your race might advance, your class might advance, so like a warlock would become a dread scythe or something, something like that. And so your profession might also advance, so a chef becomes a master chef, or, so that's something you like once that, oh, tier 2 is coming, people are, like, hey, that's something you can think about. So for most of it, it's like, but it's still, I'm making it up as I go along.
Right.
But, that's something I set as a basic, hey, here's a thing and go work for the thing.
Okay. Matt, how do you approach?
Well, my answer is kind of similar to what my answer to the last one is again, kind of, if it's cool, if it ratchets tension for people to know that, or mystery. I have a character that in the Dungeon Crawler Carl book that has to reach 4 milestones, and at the beginning of the most recent book, she's reaches the 3rd milestone, and we know that she has to get to a certain point to reach the 4th, and then something happens, but we don't know. We as the readers don't know what that's going to be. Me as a writer doesn't know either, to be honest with you. But it'll be something cool if she can reach there. And the problem is that's it's an impossible place. But people kind of assume that she's going to get there because I've written it into the story, but maybe not. Maybe I'll kill her in book 7.
Chekhov's gun.
We don't exactly.
It must be you.
And that's exactly right, Jay. We use them as Chekhov guns. These tiers that they're reaching. Once we mention them, and again, it causes a landmine as for readers, because they anticipate, you're going to become the Death Leech Blood Mage if you get to level 15, and you mention it 20 times, and then they never get to level 15, or they pick, Unicorn Princess instead when they get to 15, and then people get mad.
Yeah, as they should. Okay, so then, looking out, at the, all the different books out there and all the different systems out there, whether they be published or Royal Road or whatnot, if you had to choose a system that's not your own, and specifically a system of leveling, progression, power, is there a favorite out there? And it doesn't have to be the best end all be all, right? But just like, hey, I really like this for a particular aspect of it. And you can pick one or two, and like, what would you highlight as the thing that makes it interesting?
I'll go first.
Well, and Stuart, you came up with the one, so it is you.
Yeah. So the one I would pick is Universe Online. It was a Royal Road book, and some of it went on to Amazon, but before the author had some health problems and had to stop writing. But how he did his system is he had a skill web, and so you like got skills, and then you could slot them into the web in different ways, so that like a reading skill could combine with computers for something, or your see in the dark spell skill could combine with different things in different ways. And so it was really cool, all the ways that you could combine stuff in that thing. It's still on Royal Road, but it was like 9 years ago that it came out. So
Right on. Anybody else have a favorite system that they would point out?
I kind of do, but I can't remember the exact name of the. It was a manga I read a while ago, and I want to say it was Archmage Streamer.
Archmage Streamer. I don't know that one.
I read it a long time. It's a card-based manga.
Okay.
And he was playing a VR MMO, and he gets these cards for skills. And I really like card-based stuff. Like that's probably going to be my next one. Is I have a card apocalypse that I really want to write. But it's that I get really super addicted to gacha games.
Okay.
And so like I think it would be fun to write a gacha system, like a pure gacha system.
Mm-hmm.
But with luck as a major stat. I am very much biased because of the things I've read, and I read a lot of Chinese and Korean and Japanese stuff.
Got it.
So
You should write one.
Yeah, right. Okay, so sorry, I'm going to cut you off there. Matt, your turn, since you did say something.
I wish I had more time in the world. I would love to write a story in Tao's System Apocalypse universe. I would love it.
No, it's pretty damn cool.
The option is always there.
I don't
have 10 years.
It would take me. I would love to do that. And this is kind of obvious. I think of the He Who Fights with Monsters. The whole Essence system it's really cool, and and there's and I love Shirt, but if I had done this, I would have all sorts of crazy underarm deodorant essence mixed in with garlic essence. There's so many awesome combinations you can make to come with great skills, and that I would love to write a story using kind of a rip off of that system. I read a lot of these books, and there's so many different ones, like big systems and small systems. Beware of Chicken or Heretical Fishing. It's just
Mm-hmm.
the cultivation stories. Anything. I mean, I can go on and on, but it's.
If I'm hearing you correctly,
love that's
the Essence one. Is it because of the flexibility? What is it? Because of the kind of bringing it together as a recipe, or
the potentials. The whole thing about combining things and then getting something new that people haven't seen before, that sort of thing. I love the idea of just playing with it. A lot of people read books and their brains like them because they self-insert themselves into the main character, and that's a lot of reasons why a lot of the other books a lot of people don't like, just because it's like a woman character. Oh my God, I can't read a book with a woman character. But me as a writer, when I read books, I fantasize about how I would write this book, and I want to do it.
That's how you would write the book, not how you would write in the book.
Captured my joy of reading,
right,
is by doing that. And it's it's something weird that happens in your brain when you spend all day writing books. But
how I would set up my character in this universe,
right? Makes sense.
And it's so fun to me. So I mean, we could do a whole panel on this, but yeah. So
well, and I think it's in some ways it's okay, so hey, if there was somebody was writing a book today, what kind of system would be the one that would encourage you to read that book? And so it sounds a little bit like, hey, take a little bit of He Who Fights with Monsters, Essence, mix it in with some of this, and suddenly Matt's reading your book. So I think that's the best takeaway so far. The panel. Tao, anything to add to that? What's your favorite out there?
Probably. The one that I haven't seen repeated a lot is Jay's brother's book, Xander Boyce's Advent series, the Red Mage.
The map.
Where you've got constellations.
It's the Path of Exile map.
Yeah. It's yeah, you got constellations in there, and then you can slot in these crystals, which are all, you get different types of crystals, and depending on which crystals you slot in, you get different abilities, and it's kind of really cool. And I know he kind of ripped it off a bit.
Well,
but
it was a mixture of like Path of Exile and Final Fantasy maps.
yeah,
Oh,
I haven't
sure, it
seen
works.
anyone else do something very much like that,
Mhm.
especially recently. So I'd love to see some more stuff like that. A lot of the card ones are happening right now.
Love
Card Mage by Bernard Patrick, I think.
Don't
He
know.
does this really interesting thing where the rules of the deck are the same. However, the way that people have to play it because they are poor is different.
Oh, interesting.
And so the world changes because of social structures, not because of the way that the deck is built. So you can see that, once he gets out of being poor, the game is going to change, but it's not really the game, it's
Right.
how he's playing it.
Hmm.
So I thought that was really well done.
Okay, cool.
You'd like
All right,
that.
here's a super simple one for you guys. Your least favorite stats that should be done away with and not allowed within Lit RPG, and why?
Intelligence.
Intelligence. How come?
Specifically intelligence that actually makes people smarter.
I agree with that 100%. I wisdom and intelligence, those two specific stats completely alter a person's person. I mean, they all do in certain ways, but wisdom specifically for me alters a person's personality. And then I've made it so intelligence doesn't actually affect how
Right.
intelligent they are. It's just how many points
Memory,
of mana they have
right,
to
yeah.
cast their spells.
Right.
We see this a lot where people have stats, but their personality does not change. I mean, your personality would change if your charisma was significantly higher than it was. We see that a lot in television where people they're like reality show characters, and then they're like not most conventionally attractive, and then suddenly they get all this surgery, and then it physically makes them more in real life. It physically makes them more attractive, and then their personality completely changes.
Yep.
And the idea of stats is great in games, but it's a significant challenge when you're actually writing human characters.
Oh, absolutely.
And I don't like using the wisdom stat for that exact reason.
I mean, I could argue that if suddenly your strength or constitution went skyrocketing, it would also change your personality, because suddenly
Right.
you're the strongest person in the room, male or female, and you're like, yeah, nobody can screw with me.
No, absolutely. They all affect it.
They all
That's
do. Yep.
easier to write.
Right.
Like if
But wisdom and intelligence. Okay, somebody else, different stat.
I definitely used. I've deleted wisdom from all of
Okay.
mine.
So wisdom is that we got 2 votes against wisdom. Stuart, Tao, where are you voting on wisdom? For it, keep it,
God. Yeah, wisdom,
Oh,
if
God.
it changes your brain, yeah.
gone. All right, Stuart.
See, I keep them, and I've had a couple times where somebody got a bunch of levels in a really short time because of mass murder, but they
Was that wise?
they blew up the planet, so they were going to get some experience out of it.
That's certainly mass murder.
So they got a bunch of points all in a hurry, so they recognize something that you don't normally happens too slowly over time, because most people don't get like a couple points of wisdom or something at a time, so it's not as big a change. But they got like a whole bunch of intelligence in a hurry, and they're like, oh, I think a lot faster now. It's not that they were suddenly more intelligent, it's more like you overclocked your computer.
Got it.
Computer didn't.
So you're saying let's keep wisdom. Is there a stat that you're like, this one doesn't belong on the book?
Luck is the one that I just
The old
don't
plot
really
armor.
do any with, because it's like
Hard to quantify.
it's like you're either going to make it so it's the get out of jail free stat, because you're suddenly I tripped at the right moment that the bullet shot past, and I didn't die because so it's like either the get out of jail free stat, or it's the I need something to happen, so here's thing, yay thing.
or
Yeah,
comic relief or something. Now, has anybody? Because I've seen. I think it was on Reddit. I was reading a thread on luck, and there was a question on, has anybody ever seen luck done well? And I think there was a few recommendations. I don't know. Have you, have any of you ever seen luck or intelligence or
Superpowers
wisdom?
by Drew Hayes
Okay.
is the one I
Yes.
would recommend for
Yes.
that.
There's a couple other where I've seen where it's basically like probability control rather than
okay.
And that's
Um,
what Drew
That's
does.
kind of what
That's
that's
what
what
you
it
do.
is in
Okay.
superpowers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Domino
Yeah.
from
Japanese.
the X-Men universe, and like in some other ones where it's basically they throw a baseball and it bounces off a satellite dish in just the right way to change a bunch of things, and so it's like you set up the Rube Goldberg machine kind of luck.
Okay. So
Japanese
we've only got.
White Walkers, I would say.
What's that? Sorry.
For Luck series, a lot of Japanese works, but they're based around the character having ridiculous luck, right? So
Right.
then it becomes this.
That's
Oh,
what
okay, about that. Okay.
Luck Stat Warlock or something like that, where it
That's
was
so many.
Okay. So we've got 5 minutes late. 5 minutes left. So I do have a question. So we are all characters in the universe, and it turns out we've actually been collecting experience points. Now, you cannot count your author work towards your experience points. So what has been the primary driver of your experience points in your life? Ooh, that's a weird question, huh? What's been driving your experience points? Stuart.
Okay. I think I should get lots of points in just for not murdering people in
Okay, restraint. Willpower restraint.
Yeah, willpower restraint
For not murdering people specifically.
Retail work for
That's good.
part of 30 years.
Stay away from Stuart.
And it's like,
Mhm.
I would dearly love to run you all over with a truck.
Okay, that's great. Please keep leveling that up. Tal, how about yourself? You've been getting experience. What's it actually from?
I don't know. I mean, I don't.
Well, you're a businessman. Have you been getting it from business?
Yeah, I mean,
Something else?
I do okay.
Jim? No?
Yeah, I mean,
Nothing comes to mind?
I'm kind of boring.
I
all
doubt
do
that.
is-
I doubt that. You've got lots to say. I've talked to you at length, and you've got a lot of wisdom in there. So, okay, Matt, how about yourself? Where are you getting experience?
Well, first off, I understand Stuart's books now. He's been in retail for 30 years.
Sweet.
Retail and
Take
food
away.
service. Let's
Take
face it.
away.
Oh man, so I have a bunch of children.
Okay.
I play in a couple bands.
Yep.
Yep.
I'm an
Worked as
animal
a psychic
hoarder.
An animal hoarder.
I have-
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh,
Just give me
So-
one. We're running out of time here. And I want to give Jay a chance. And I want you guys to do the outro as well. So, what's your number one experience gathering point? What is it?
It's probably dealing with children. So
Okay.
Animal herding,
Animal
same
handling.
thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Makes sense. Jay, how about you?
To be fair, pretty much in every job I was customer service facing and
Oh,
HR.
Okay.
So
Oh,
I
you poor
did a
thing.
lot of office and management and dealing with customers.
Okay. That's good.
So
One well-rounded human being in this entire group of 5. That's a sad comment. Okay. All right. So with that, sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Tao, outro. What are you working on? Where can we find you? And we'll go Tao, Matt, Stuart, Jay.
oh god, I'm working on so much. 1,000 Lee, Magic Kingdom at War, and Climbing the Ranks are the ones that I are currently releasing and or will be releasing very soon. You can find out all about that at Starlit Publishing and on my Amazon stores.
Right on. Thank you, Matt.
I have a Dungeon Crawler Carl Book 7. This Inevitable Ruin is about to come out on November 11th. And there's also the hardcover pre-orders for books 4, 5, and 6 through
Oh,
Ace
cool.
are now available on Amazon as of a couple days ago. And that's what I'm working on.
Thank you. Justice for Nibbles. Okay, Stuart.
That was from the D&D game, yes.
My stuff is on Amazon. I have 190 titles as of earlier this week because my serial novellas. My most recent one is called Reborn as the First Boss, where a biker chick gets reincarnated into a game world as the first boss, and she's like, no, thank you, we're not doing that. And so I just keep on keeping on, and yeah.
Right on. Okay, thank you, Jay.
So the last thing I've released was I actually re-edited the first 3 books of A Touch of Power, and now I'm writing book 5. So that's being posted on Patreon as I do it slowly. But that's what I'm working on. You can find it on Amazon, Patreon. My jboyce.com will send you to pretty much everything.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, guys. We're at the top of the hour, so that's where we'll end it. Appreciate it. I mean, you guys have so much knowledge and experience, and it's great to have a chance that you can actually share it with other people, not just the knowledge, but also some of the fun stuff too. So thank you for that. I guess we'll say goodbye to everybody now.
Goodbye. Awkward waving.